Hi, this is Paul Rice calling from Spare Change News in Boston. Hi, how are you doing today? Good. Currently working on an article about the governor's fiscal year '07 budget, and I just wanted to talk to somebody from the Budget and Policy Center because I've been using your guys' breakdown of the budget with specific regards to your work on the housing, on the governor's plan for housing stuff. I'm from Seattle originally and came out to Boston to go to Emerson. It sounds weird to say, but I've always had an affinity for homeless people. Not just homeless people, but people who live on the edge, people who've sort of been rejected by society.
Spare Change newspaper. Spare Change News. My name is James Shearer. I am one of the founding members of Spare Change newspaper. I'm also on the board of directors of Spare Change's parent project, Homeless Apartment Project. In high school, I was editor of a high school newspaper. I was looking forward to going to college and studying journalism and actually becoming a writer, script writer, all that stuff. And people make bad decisions all the time, and I made a few. Instead of going the right way, I went the wrong way. I made some bad decisions, and I was homeless for a long time because of it. I suffered.
My name is Joe McDonald. I'm the vendor coordinator with Spare Change. In other words, I'm in charge of the hiring and firing of all the vendors who work for Spare Change. I lost my job, I got in credit card debt, and I was living off credit cards when the unemployment ran out. Next thing I know, I'm in debt, and I can't pay the rent. I'm single, and I found myself on the street, literally, going from friend's couch to couch. And I was actually panhandling by CVS near Mass General Hospital. And a Spare Change vendor came over and said, "Why don't you sell Spare Change? You can make, it's better than doing this," and so forth. That's how I ended up at Spare Change News.
Spare Change, the first issue came out in May of 1992. Okay, I started selling Spare Change on the street. I was a homeless heroin addict in March of 1993. I am not, despite what some people say, one of the founders of Spare Change. No. When I sold Spare Change News, I used to line the books up. My selling line was buy a copy of Spare Change News from one of its writers.
Helping the homeless to help themselves today. Spare Change News. Of the 13 of us that were going to be involved with starting this up, 12 of us were homeless. And so it was a question of how are we going to do this and find out where we're going to stay at night and all the other stuff that had to go, that goes along with it. We wondered how we're going to do all this. It's only like, the staff is only, there's only probably like 4 of us. So a friend of ours named Tim Harris, he was the executive director of Boston Jobs and Peace, he was working with us, came up with this idea, something like Streetwise, Streetwise, the street news in New York. What he wanted to do was create a newspaper, but what the difference is about what this newspaper was going to be is we were going to make the decisions, we were going to do the writing, all of that, and then we were going to sell it and keep the money ourselves, and that was going to be different from any other newspaper. It was actually going to be ours. Most of them now are, one passed away unfortunately, Dolores Dell. The other ones are all spread out all over the place. I barely see any of them. But I have a lot of fond memories of them. We went through a lot to get that paper started.
Most of our money comes from grants and things. From vendor sales, we would have been out, if it was just vendor sales, we would have been out of business a long time ago.
This doesn't get out there a lot, but the vendors buy the paper at 25 cents a copy from us, and they sell it and they make 75 cents off it. So they make, so in essence, they make 75 cents plus their quarterback, so they make $1 a piece. And it helps. Like I said, it's a real job. We're no different than the Boston Herald, the Globe, and the Metro.
We're a public charity. but we don't take any money from the state or the federal government, because in turn they would dictate to us in one shape or one form or another how we should run the policy. That's why we're depending on businesses. We're dependent on them giving us money and so forth.
My name is Sam Scott. I am the editor of Spare Change News and the executive director of the Homeless Empowerment Project. I studied journalism at Boston University, graduated in 2002. Until I was 16, I actually grew up fairly poor. My parents divorced, mom lost her job in the early 90s recession, and I thought that working here at Spare Change would be a way for me to use my education and my interest to give something back.
I think in the past I got involved with volunteer work because I wanted to help people with bigger problems than my own. I was going through a bad time in my own life, and I decided I wanted to try to help others, kind of forget about my own problems. And somehow I just ended up picking up a copy of Spare Change on the T or something one day and thought, this is kind of a neat thing. These guys are helping out homeless people. What can I do to help them? I have an editorial background, and that's what I do for work in my regular life. So I thought maybe I can use some of those skills to help others.
Basically, because we talk about things that nobody wants to talk about. Nobody really wants to discuss homelessness or poverty or anything like that, and we talk about that stuff. And other daily newspapers, they don't talk about that at all. You might get a 1 or 2 lines on a paper, but other than that, you don't. We examine the issues, open it up, and basically tell the truth about what's really going on out there.
Yeah, this is actually almost done. So 1962, I was dating this girl. She and I split a bottle of cough syrup. She drank half, I drank half. That's how I began. I never really liked alcohol. When I found narcotics in the form of codeine-based cough syrup, I thought I was home. I've been a writer all my life. When I say all my life, I wrote my first poem that I recall like when I was 15 years old. And then like I've been published in like things like Pegasus, Pine Island Journal of New England Poetry. I stopped writing because as my heroin addiction took over, I stopped writing. You know, heroin, the one thing about heroin is it gives you a gift, okay? But the gift works in reverse, okay? Like heroin would help me write, and then it took it away. I went to college. I didn't graduate. Then I used to do more and more. Like my intake increased. I would take barbiturates, Seconal, Nembutal, Tuinol, you know, just different things, Dordan, to boost it up. At a certain point, I was drinking 1 to 3 bottles of cough syrup a day. Okay, I was addicted. People should be treated with dignity, no matter what they do. You gotta sleep with your shoes under your pillow if you have a good pair of shoes. You know, if you have money, you gotta tuck it like into your underwear. You know, like you have to make pouches and really protect yourself. If you're a woman, that's a whole other story. You know, like you won't get raped at a shelter, but there's people like, if they know you're homeless, like during the day you have no place to go, and people pray. If a person could just quit and there was no other dynamic that was involved, people would stop and never start again. It would be that simple.
I come in and Sam's like, the Herald scooped us. You know, here we got this guy killing homeless people. This guy, Stephen Niebuhr, had died. He had died. They were blaming it on this guy, Dennis Connolly, who was notorious in the homeless community as, you know, being a violent dude when he's drunk. And the Herald was just like, it has to be this guy. He just got released from jail. So I'm just going to go corroborate the story. I'm going in to basically find out, is Connolly around? Is he being sought for questioning? And I actually get in touch with some eyewitnesses who told me that actually Connolly had nothing to do with it. That in fact it was just a random stupid fight, you know, stupid drunk fight. And it just so happens that Stephen Niebuhr suffered a bad fall during the fight and walked off and went to go die in an alley, in Listerine Alley.
The Globe, I sometimes feel, doesn't really think much of us because, you know, they're the Boston Globe and we're this very small alternative newspaper in Boston. But I think, because we've scooped every other newspaper in the city on all sorts of issues.
Sometimes we're really able to address things that I think no other paper would touch, like you know, what does Listerine do to the human body when it's consumed? There's a lot of homeless alcoholics who drink Listerine, you know. The Herald, you know, kept spinning the story about Dennis Connolly, and you know, we covered it as it was. We ran, like, for the first time ever, ran an extra edition.
By the homeless, sir. Thank you, sir. Only $1 donation, sir. Thank you, sir. Well, it can never change the issue of homelessness, but it can give people an idea what homeless is all about. Because people really don't have an idea what homeless is about, only just what they see.
Oh, it's cold. Spare Change newspaper. Oh, yeah. Caffeine.
My technique is just to stand and hold the paper up. I don't say much, but over the last 2.5 years, I've built up a clientele in Boston and Cambridge here. So they pretty much know me, and they'll come up and have conversations with me, talk about the weather and whatever. You know?
I'm down here, and usually on Saturdays at about 12 o'clock, I'm down in front of McDonald's down there. For some reason, down there is the hottest spot on Saturdays. I mean, it's like, and it's funny because you see what all this traffic here, right? Now, say if I went across the street, I wouldn't make a dime because there's no traffic over there.
I was selling a homeless newspaper, so no one was sure whether I was homeless or not at the time. Some people asked me, and I'd say, yes, I'm staying in a shelter at the moment.
A lot of times I get people to come by, and if it's really, really cold, people that know me give me money or buy me coffee or give me money just so I'll get off the street and get out of the cold. That's something you got to watch too. They see the name Spare Change, and they'll come up, and like some of them are just wise guys. They'll come up and they give you 15 cents, and they think they're going to take the paper, and it's like, wait a minute, the paper's $1. But no, it says Spare Change. That's just the name.
I used to call it my office. I used to sell, in the end, I sold for about 8 years in Central Square in front of what's now Bank of America, but it was Fleet, and before that it was Bank Boston. And so I started selling Spare Change in March of 1993. I became abstinent for the first time in my life in March of 1994. By September of 1994, I was the editor. This is a book of poetry, It's called No Apologies, written while I was in prison 1982-83. Although my style has changed much and I felt a compulsive need to alter many of these poems as I typed them in for this collection, I resisted. I didn't have to change them even if I wanted to. The reason for this is simple. Poison Pen is a reflection of where I was during those years, to be true to myself, to what I was, whether pretty or ugly in the mirror of these times, deep in the passion of my addiction. I present myself as I was then. In the world of poetry, there may be many who find fault with my style back then. To these poets, I say that Poison Pen is flawless. It is my testament to the inferno from which I emerged scathed. It's bigger than me. You know, I'm just like, the paper helped me change my life. You know, I was a derelict, and today I help people, and people help me too. You know, it isn't just me helping people, it's people helping me help people. You know, we don't do this alone. Like, no one does it alone. Spare Change is doing the best it can with what it has.
Spare Change helped me because it gave me a job when I didn't have one. And I was asked one time, just one time while I was selling Spare Change, someone said, "Why don't you get a real job?"
This is a real job. I mean, you've got people out there that are selling a product and making money and earning a living and surviving off it. So I want to get across to people that it's a job.
And it's earning me money. That's a real job. I'm not sitting inside behind a desk, you know, pushing pencils or paper, whatever. So I have a real job.
Hey, this is Paul Rice calling from Spare Change News in Boston. Hi, how are you doing? Good. I left a message with you guys a couple days ago. I was hoping to get somebody to call me back and talk to me about the governor's proposed budget for '07. With regards to the housing section of the budget and some of the cuts he's planning or he wants to see made. I left a message. I can't remember the name of the lady who I left it with, but I was hoping to get somebody to call me back.
From the feedback we get, a lot of people support the paper because we report on issues that no other news outlet does.
It'd be so easy for it just to be like a reactionary, knee-jerk liberal publication. And, you know, we actually, well, I think we're far from that. In my worst nightmares, we just become a mouthpiece for advocates and write about nothing but budgets and spending. Because that's boring. I mean, it's important, but I don't think that should be the paramount purpose of the paper. And we're really trying to balance our, you know, issues of homelessness and poverty with other issues that we think are, you know, that you're not going to find covered in detail in other places.
Well, I think everybody I ask about Spare Change or whom I tell I work, you know, for Spare Change, they all nod. They know what it is, and they've gotten a copy, or they actually have written for it in the past. Or, I mean, there's a lot of awareness of the publication out there. And what's the circulation now? 10,000 or something. I mean, that's significant. You know, that is what really tells the story of Spare Change's success, is that they have done, you know, they have increased the awareness significantly of this issue and many issues around homelessness.
We've also been getting more attention in the media, local media. There was an editorial we wrote a couple weeks ago that got some pickup in the Herald, and then that snowballed into, you know, doing like conservative talk radio interviews, and I was on Beat the Press, WGBH. I mean, maybe we'll go weekly. I don't know at this point. That's the dream. The dream is weekly. Whether or not that happens, I think first we need a real editorial staff. First we need, you know, a lot more people working on the project. But I also want people to pay attention for the right reasons. I want people to pay attention because they're honestly concerned about poverty. I don't think we should have to sell people on the fact that you should be cognizant of the fact that there are poor people living right around you every day. And I don't know what it will take. I don't know what exactly it will take to raise people's awareness level to the point where I think it should be, which is I should be paying attention to poor people because they're growing every day and in every way. You know, the poor get bigger every year. It becomes a larger group of people.